Krelvan stood in the briefing room of the warship Eternal Vigil, his forearms crossed behind his back in the traditional Vothar military stance. Around him, officers from a dozen different species waited for the mission details. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and the faint chemical tang that always accompanied long space voyages. He had fought in 47 battles. He had killed enemies in hand-to-hand combat, piloted strike craft through asteroid fields, and led boarding parties against pirate vessels. Not once had he retreated. Not once had he hesitated. His people, the Vothar, were known throughout the galaxy as the most fearless warriors in the Galactic Coalition. It was not bravery that made them this way. It was biology. Their brains simply did not produce the chemicals that other species called fear. The briefing officer, a tall Sendari with blue skin, activated the holographic display. A space station appeared, rotating slowly in the projected light. "Station? Orpheus," the officer said, "captured by Ravager forces 6 days ago. Approximately 200 civilians and military personnel trapped inside. Intelligence suggests the Ravagers are using it as a forward staging ground." Krelvan studied the station's layout. He had fought Ravagers before. They were insectoid creatures, all teeth and claws, and acid blood. Dangerous, but predictable. They swarmed. They overwhelmed through numbers. Standard tactics applied. Mortality rate for rescue operations on Ravager-held positions is 73%. The briefing officer continued. Around the room, several officers shifted uncomfortably. Krelvan did not understand this reaction. Numbers were simply numbers. You either completed the mission, or you did not. "This will be a joint operation," the Sendari said. "Vothar warriors will provide the primary assault force. However, you will be working alongside soldiers from our newest coalition member, humans, from the planet Earth." Krelvan had heard of humans. They had joined the coalition only months ago, after their world had been attacked by raiders. They were a young species, barely reaching beyond their own solar system before contact. Most species dismissed them as weak. They had no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no special abilities, just soft skin and fragile bones. The door to the briefing room opened. 5 figures entered, wearing dark armor marked with strange symbols. Krelvan studied them with his main eyes, while his secondary eyes scanned for threats out of habit. They were small compared to most coalition species. One male, clearly the leader, stepped forward. His face was calm, his dark eyes moving across the room with careful attention. "Corporal Taemin," the human said, his voice quiet but clear. "Human Defense Corps, 3rd Division." He gestured to the others. "Private Jiwoo, our medic. Sergeant Hyun Woo, weapons specialist. Private Minji, combat engineer. Private Doyun, reconnaissance." The human female named Jiwoo nodded to the room. She carried medical equipment alongside her weapon. The one called Hyun Woo was broader than the others, his arms thick with muscle. Minji had sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything she saw. Doyun was lean and moved with absolute silence. "Humans," the briefing officer said, "will provide tactical support and extraction planning. Vothar warriors will lead the assault." Questions. One of Krelvan's fellow warriors, Raltok, spoke up. "Why do we need tactical support? We have fought Ravagers many times." Taemin's expression did not change. "You've fought them. How many of your warriors came back?" The room went silent. It was not a question Voth are usually considered important. Warriors died. Missions succeeded. This was the way. "All of them came back," Raltok said proudly. "Because we do not retreat." "No," Taemin said softly. "I checked your records. 60% casualties on your last 3 Ravager engagements. You count that as success because the mission objectives were completed. We count that as unacceptable loss of life." Raltok's face darkened with anger. But the briefing officer raised a hand. "The human assessment methods have proven effective in their own operations. Their combat doctrine will be reviewed with all team leaders before the mission. Dismissed. As the room cleared, Krelvan found himself walking beside Taemin. The human was studying a datapad, his fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. "You think we are reckless," Krelvan said. It was not a question. Taemin looked up. "I think you fight like you have nothing to lose. That makes you dangerous. To the enemy, yes, but also to yourselves." "We do not feel fear," Krelvan explained. "Our people evolved on a world where fear was a disadvantage, predators hunted by sensing fear chemicals. So our biology eliminated it. We understand the concept, but we do not experience it." The human was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. "Must be nice," he finally said. "No nightmares, no doubt, no cold feeling in your stomach before a battle. You feel this? Before every battle?" "Every single one," Taemin said. He met Krelvan's eyes. "But we go anyway." Krelvan did not understand. If they felt this fear, this negative sensation, why not simply eliminate it, as his people had? Why carry such a burden? That evening, Krelvan observed the human squad in the training bay. They moved through combat drills, but not like any warriors he had seen before. They constantly communicated, calling out positions and threats. They covered each other, never leaving one soldier exposed. When Hyunwoo advanced, Jiwoo and Minji provided covering fire. When Minji planted a practice explosive, Doyun watched every angle. "Why do you fight this way?" Krelvan asked during a break. Jiwoo wiped sweat from her face. "Because we're scared," she said simply. "We're scared of dying. We're scared of our friends dying. So we watch each other's backs." "Fear makes you weaker," Krelvan said, repeating what every Vothar knew. "Does it?" Hyunwoo asked. He pointed to a training dummy riddled with marks from a previous Vothar drill. "Your warriors shot that target 47 times. Perfect accuracy, perfect speed. But they never once checked their flanks. We counted 3 different angles where they would have been killed by a hidden enemy." Minji added, "Fear makes us careful. Careful keeps us alive." That night, Krelvan reviewed human combat footage. He watched human soldiers in dozens of battles. They fought differently than any species he knew. They retreated when overwhelmed, regrouped, attacked from new angles. They sacrificed ground to save soldiers. They used cover obsessively. They planned for failure. It was completely contrary to Vothar doctrine. And yet, human casualty rates were remarkably low. The next day, the strike team assembled in the hangar bay. 10 Vothar warriors, 5 human soldiers. The assault ship waited, its engines already warming up. Krelvan checked his weapons, his 4 hands moving through the routine he had performed 1,000 times. Taemin approached him. "When we're in there, follow human tactical signals. If we call for withdrawal, we need you to pull back with us." "Vothar do not withdraw," Krelvan said automatically. The human's jaw tightened. "Then Vothar die. Station Orpheus is a death trap. The only way we all survive is if we work as one unit. That means sometimes you retreat. Sometimes you wait. Sometimes you let the enemy come to you. You are asking us to fight like cowards," Raltok said from nearby. "No," Taemin said, his voice hard now. "I'm asking you to fight like soldiers who want to see tomorrow." There's a difference. The ship's engines roared to life. The mission was beginning. Krelvan took his position, his weapons ready, his mind clear. He had never failed a mission. He had never known doubt. As he looked at the humans strapping into their seats, checking each other's equipment one final time, he wondered what it felt like to carry fear into battle. He would soon find out. The assault ship shook as it cut through the debris field surrounding Station Orpheus. Through the viewport, Krelvan could see the station rotating slowly, its hull scarred with blast marks and biological growth. The Ravagers had been busy. Dark, organic material spread across the metal surfaces like a disease. 2 minutes to breach, the pilot announced. Krelvan checked his plasma rifle one more time. Around him, the Vothar warriors sat in perfect stillness, ready for combat. Across the bay, the human soldiers were different. They moved constantly, adjusting straps, touching their weapons, looking at each other. Jiwoo's hands trembled slightly as she checked her medical kit. "First time?" Krelvan asked her. She looked up, surprised. "No. 15th mission against Ravagers. But you are shaking." "Yeah," she said. "I always shake before we go in. Hyunwoo throws up sometimes. Minji can't sleep the night before. Doyun gets really quiet. This fear does not stop you?" Jiwoo smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "No. It just reminds us to be careful." The ship lurched as magnetic clamps locked onto the station's hull. Cutting torches flared to life, burning through the exterior airlock. Red emergency lights bathed the bay as pressure equalized with a hiss. "Go, go, go!" Taemin shouted. The breach door exploded inward. Krelvan charged through, his forearms bringing weapons to bear. The corridor beyond was dark, lit only by failing emergency strips. The walls were covered in the same organic material, pulsing slightly as if breathing. A Ravager dropped from the ceiling with a shriek. Krelvan's primary arms fired without thought, punching 3 holes through its carapace. It fell, acid blood hissing against the deck. 2 more emerged from a side corridor. Raltok and another warrior cut them down with precision fire. "Contact front." Doyun's voice crackled over the radio. Multiple signatures. 20 meters. The Vothar warriors advanced without hesitation. This was what they were built for. No fear to slow their reactions, no doubt to cloud their tactics. Pure, efficient violence. "Wait!" Taemin's voice was sharp. "Krelvan, stop your advance. That corridor is a kill zone." Krelvan paused, surprised at himself for stopping. "We have superior firepower. We push through. Look at the walls," Minji said, moving up beside him. She pointed her scanner at the organic growth. "That material is load-bearing. They've structurally reinforced the corridor. It's a trap." "We fight through traps," Raltok said. He moved forward. The ceiling exploded downward. 5 Ravagers dropped simultaneously. Their blade limbs extended. Raltok killed 2, but the 3rd tore into his shoulder. The 4th and 5th landed on another Vothar warrior, dragging him down. Krelvan fired, his shots precise and lethal. But more Ravagers poured from hidden openings in the walls. The corridor was suddenly full of them. More than sensors had detected. "Fall back," Taemin ordered. "Fighting withdrawal. Now." The humans retreated in a coordinated pattern, each soldier covering the others as they moved backward. Hyunwoo fired sustained bursts, while Jiwoo and Minji pulled wounded warriors. Doyun threw a grenade that sealed one of the wall openings with debris. The Vothar warriors, however, held their ground. To retreat was against everything they knew. 2 more went down under the swarm. Krelvan killed Ravager after Ravager, but they kept coming. "Krelvan!" Jiwoo screamed. He looked up. A massive Ravager, larger than the others, clung to the ceiling directly over him. Its mandibles opened wide. Krelvan raised his weapons, but he knew he was too slow. The creature would land on him before he could fire. A burst of gunfire stitched across the creature's underside. It shrieked and fell, but away from Krelvan. Jiwoo stood in the corridor entrance, her rifle smoking. "Move!" she shouted. Krelvan ran. It felt wrong, alien to his nature. But behind him, the 2 Vothar warriors who had refused to retreat were being torn apart. He heard their weapons firing until the very end, then only the sounds of feeding. The team regrouped at a junction 50 meters away. Taemin was already sealing the corridor behind them with emergency bulkheads. 3 Vothar warriors dead. 1 badly wounded. All in less than 5 minutes. "You left them," Raltok snarled at Taemin. "And lost 6 more trying," Taemin said, his voice hard. "That's not courage. That's waste." Raltok lunged at the human. Krelvan caught him with 2 arms. Stop. He is right. Right? Raltok's eyes burned with rage. He abandoned our warriors. They abandoned themselves, Krelvan said quietly. They walked into an obvious trap because they felt no fear to warn them. I would have done the same. Jiwoo saved my life because she was watching for dangers I did not consider. He looked at the human medic. She was bandaging the wounded Vothar warrior with steady hands now, though her face was pale. Thank you, he said. She nodded. Just stay behind me next time. I've got better eyes for sealing ambushes. The team moved deeper into the station. The corridors were a maze of biological growth and failing systems. Ravagers attacked in small groups, probing for weaknesses. The humans fought differently than Krelvan expected. They never rushed. They advanced slowly, checking every corner twice, covering every angle. This is taking too long, Raltok complained. At this rate, the civilians will be dead before we reach them. At your rate, we'd all be dead already, Hyunwoo said. He was setting up a portable barricade at a junction. War isn't about speed. It's about still being alive at the end. Minji moved past Krelvan, her scanner painting the corridor ahead in false colors. I'm reading a large open space ahead. Probably a cargo bay. Multiple heat signatures. Hostiles? Taemin asked. Can't tell. Could be civilians. Could be ravagers. Could be both. We need to know before we enter, Taemin said. He turned to Doyun. Scout it. The lean human moved forward with incredible silence. Krelvan watched him disappear around the corner. Minutes passed. The Vothar warriors shifted impatiently. To wait while there might be enemies ahead felt fundamentally wrong. Doyun's voice crackled over the radio. It's a feeding chamber. 20, maybe 30 ravagers. They're dormant, sleeping, but there are civilians caged on the far side. I count 15 alive. Can we bypass? Taemin asked. Negative. This is the only route to the civilian holding area. Raltok stepped forward. Then we attack. Kill the ravagers while they sleep. No, Taemin said. We'd wake them all. In a closed space, they'd overwhelm us. Then what? Krelvan asked. He found himself genuinely curious. A Vothar commander would order the attack without hesitation. What would a human do? Taemin studied his datapad, his brow furrowed. Krelvan could see sweat on the human's forehead. Was that fear? Was Taemin afraid of making the wrong choice? Minji, Taemin finally said. Can you rig an explosion to collapse the ceiling on the far side of the chamber? Away from the civilians, but loud enough to draw the ravagers? The engineer studied her scanner. Maybe, but I'd have to get close. If they wake up while I'm planting charges, I'll cover you, Jiwoo said immediately. And I, Krelvan added. The words came out before he fully considered them. Minji looked at him with surprise. You sure? This is a fear plan. Not a fearless plan. We're going to be terrified the whole time. Then I will learn, Krelvan said. They moved into the cargo bay in silence. The sleeping ravagers were everywhere, hanging from the ceiling, curled in corners, their bodies rising and falling with breath. The smell was overwhelming, like rotting meat and acid. Krelvan's secondary hearts increased their rhythm, pumping combat chemicals through his body. But where he expected the familiar clarity of battle, something else crept in. Doubt. What if he missed a target? What if his shot woke them all? What if Minji made a sound while planting the charges? His hands tightened on his weapons. This was what humans felt. This constant calculation of danger, this awareness of everything that could go wrong. It made every step feel like walking on broken glass. Minji reached the support pillar and began working with slow, careful movements. 30 seconds. A minute. Sweat ran down her face. Her hands moved steadily, but Krelvan could see the tension in her shoulders. A ravager near them stirred. Its head lifted slightly. Jiwoo froze. Krelvan froze. Every instinct screamed at him to shoot, to move, to do something. But the human's training held him still. The Ravager's head turned slowly, scanning. Then it lowered again, returning to sleep. Krelvan's third heart started beating faster. He had never experienced this before. The feeling that simply existing might bring death. Done, Minji whispered. They retreated with agonizing slowness. Back with the team, Taemin detonated the charges. The explosion was massive. The Ravagers shrieked and scrambled toward the noise, away from the team. In the chaos, they rushed forward, broke open the cages, and got the civilians moving toward extraction. As they ran through the corridors, civilians stumbling between warriors, Krelvan understood something new. The humans had felt fear every moment of that operation, and they had succeeded because of it, not despite it. Fear had made them careful. Fear had made them plan. Fear had kept them alive. The civilians shuffled through the corridor. Many wounded, all terrified. Jiwoo moved between them, applying emergency medical patches and offering quiet words of comfort. Krelvan helped carry an injured Terran male who had lost the use of his legs. The man trembled constantly, his eyes wide and unfocused. "Is this your first time under attack?" Krelvan asked, trying to distract him. "No," the man whispered. "Third time. It doesn't get easier." Krelvan did not understand. Repeated experience should reduce reaction, make it familiar. But perhaps that was the nature of fear. It did not care about logic. "Command, this is Taemin." The corporal spoke into his communicator. "We have 15 civilians extracted from secondary holding. Proceeding to primary extraction point." Static crackled. Then a voice filled with urgency. "Negative. Taemin. New intel just came through. Station Orpheus isn't a forward base. It's a breeding queen nest. Repeat, there is a breeding queen on that station." The humans went very still. Krelvan saw Minji's face drain of color. Hyunwoo's jaw clenched so hard the muscles stood out like cords. "How many?" Taemin asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Unknown. Could be thousands. We're initiating orbital bombardment in 30 minutes. Get to the extraction point now. This is an immediate withdrawal order." "Understood. Moving to extraction." Taemin turned to the team. "You heard command. We move fast. Stay together. Wait." A Sindari civilian grabbed Taemin's arm. "There are more prisoners. In the central hive chamber. I heard them screaming this morning. Maybe 50 people. The central hive." Doyun's face showed open horror. "That's where the queen will be. That's suicide." "Then they are lost," Raltok said flatly. "We have our orders. 30 minutes. We extract these civilians and leave." The Sendari civilian looked at each of them. "Please. My daughter is there. She's only 12 years old." Krelvan felt something twist in his chest. Not a physical sensation, but something deeper. An image flashed through his mind, unbidden. The child, alone in darkness, surrounded by Ravagers. The thought brought a coldness he had never experienced. "We cannot save them," he said, but the words felt heavy. "Wrong. No." Taemin said quietly. "We can't. I'm sorry. But if we try, everyone dies. The civilians here, us, and the people in the hive chamber. That's not courage. That's just more bodies." The Sindari's face crumpled. The kind of expression that came with losing everything. Krelvan had seen it before on other faces, after other battles. He had never understood it. But now, looking at that broken expression, he felt an echo of something. Sadness? Empathy? He did not know the human words for what he felt. They moved toward the extraction point, the pace quick but controlled. The humans constantly checked their sensors, their weapons ready. Every shadow might hide a Ravager. Every sound could be the beginning of an attack. "I could do it," Krelvan heard himself say. Taemin glanced at him. Do what? Reach the hive chamber. Extract those prisoners. Krelvan. No. I do not feel fear like you, Krelvan interrupted. Or I did not. I am faster than humans. Stronger. I could move quickly, extract them quickly, and die quickly, Jiwoo said sharply. Krelvan. I've seen breeding queen nests. The queen alone is 15 meters tall. She'll have hundreds of drones protecting her. You'd last maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes may be enough. For what? To die a glorious death? Hyunwoo shook his head. That's the fearless thinking talking. The part of you that doesn't calculate the odds. But Raltok stepped forward. He is right. This is what we do. We do not calculate odds. We act. He looked at the other 2 surviving Vothar warriors. Who comes with me? They both stepped forward immediately. Of course they did. They were Vothar. They knew nothing but advance, attack, complete the mission. This is insane, Taemin said. Command gave us direct orders. Orbital bombardment in 28 minutes. You'll never make it. Then we die saving others, Raltok said. That is enough. Krelvan looked at the 4 Vothar warriors ready to throw themselves into certain death. Days ago, he would have joined them without thought. But something had changed. Standing next to the humans, watching their fear, seeing how it made them think and plan and survive, had altered something deep inside him. You are being stupid, Krelvan said to Raltok. You will die for nothing. Better than living as a coward. The humans are not cowards, Krelvan said, his voice sharp. They came back for me when I was being swarmed. They feel fear every moment, and they still fight. That is not weakness. Then come with us, Raltok said. Prove you are still Vothar. Krelvan's 4 hands tightened into fists. Every instinct, every cultural training, every genetic imperative screamed at him to go, to charge toward danger, to complete the mission regardless of cost. But a new voice, quieter and more uncertain, whispered a different message. A voice that sounded like Jiwoo, explaining why she shook before battle. Like Hyunwoo teaching tactical caution. Like Taemin saying fear was wisdom. No, Krelvan said. I will not watch more warriors die because they cannot be afraid. Raltok stared at him. You have been contaminated by these humans. You are no longer Vothar. He turned to the other warriors. We go. They ran toward the central hive, weapons ready. Moving with the perfect, fearless efficiency that made the Vothar famous throughout the galaxy. Krelvan watched them disappear around a corner. How long? He asked quietly. Before they die? Doyoon checked his datapad. 3 minutes. Maybe 4 if they're lucky. Taemin put a hand on Krelvan's shoulder. I'm sorry, but you made the right choice. They moved the civilians toward extraction. The station groaned around them. Metal and organic matter grinding together. In the distance, they could hear weapons, fire, the sound of Vothar plasma rifles, distinctive in their rhythm. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The firing continued, impossibly. The Vothar were still fighting. They made it to the hive, Minji said, surprise in her voice. I'm reading their weapons signatures. Then the screaming started. Not Ravager shrieks, but the deeper, louder roar of something massive. The breeding queen had awakened. Krelvan's body moved before his mind decided. He turned and ran back toward the hive chamber. Krelvan, no, Taemin shouted, but the human's footsteps followed behind him. All of them. Every single human soldier. They had not abandoned him when fear said they should. Now, they would not abandon the Vothar warriors. The corridor opened into a massive chamber. The sight froze Krelvan in place. The breeding queen filled half the space, her body a grotesque combination of insect and something worse. Hundreds of Ravagers swarmed around her like a living carpet. And in the center, surrounded, the three Vothar warriors fought back to back. They had freed the prisoners. 50 terrified people huddled behind a makeshift barricade the warriors had created. Raltok's armor was shredded, acid burns covering his body. The other two warriors were still fighting, but barely. They would be dead in seconds. "Covering fire!" Taemin screamed. The humans opened up with everything they had. Grenades arced through the air. Plasma bolts cut through the swarm. It was hopeless. Suicidal. 5 humans against a breeding queen and her nest. But they did it anyway. Krelvan charged forward, firing all 4 weapons at once. A Ravager leaped at him. He killed it mid-air. Another came from the side. Hyunwoo's shot took it down before it reached him. They fought as one unit, humans and Vothar, covering each other's weaknesses. "Get the prisoners out," Raltok shouted. "We will hold them." "No one holds this," Jiwoo screamed back. "Everyone moves together or everyone dies together." The breeding queen's massive head swung toward them. Her mandibles opened, revealing rows of teeth the size of a human torso. She screamed, and the sound was so loud that Krelvan's audio processors temporarily shut down. Minji threw something small and silver. It attached to the queen's head. "Everyone down!" The explosion was enormous. The queen's head snapped back, one of her eyes destroyed. She thrashed in pain and rage, crushing dozens of her own drones. In the chaos, the team grabbed prisoners and ran. They ran through corridors while the station shook itself apart. Ravagers pursued, but the humans fought them with desperate efficiency. Every shot counted. Every moment mattered. Krelvan carried 2 prisoners, his muscles burning. Beside him, Jiwoo dragged a wounded Vothar warrior who could no longer walk. "Extraction point. 30 seconds, Taemin shouted. They burst into the hangar bay. The assault ship waited, engines hot. But Ravagers poured from every entrance. Too many. Far too many. "Go!" Hyunwoo shouted. He stood at the entrance, firing into the swarm. "Get them on the ship. I'll hold them." "No!" Minji screamed. But Hyunwoo was already throwing grenades, creating a wall of fire and shrapnel. "Tell my family I wasn't afraid," he shouted, even though everyone could see he was terrified. His hands shook as he reloaded. His face was pale, but he stood his ground. Krelvan watched humans grab prisoners and push them onto the ship. Watched Jiwoo crying as she ran. Watched Taemin's face twist with grief and rage. And for the first time in his life, Krelvan understood what he was seeing. Not fearlessness, not even courage. Something deeper. Humans felt fear so strongly that they knew exactly what they were giving up. They felt fear so deeply that sacrifice meant something. Hyunwoo's weapons fell silent. The Ravagers swarmed over him. The ship's doors sealed, and they launched, escaping just as the orbital bombardment began. Through the viewport, Krelvan watched Station Orpheus break apart in nuclear fire. In the ship's hold, humans and aliens and Vothar warriors sat in silence. The rescued prisoners huddled together. 50 people saved. But the cost had been paid in blood and fear, and one human who had chosen to die so others could live. Krelvan looked at his 4 hands. They were shaking. Not from exhaustion. Not from injury. From something else entirely. Something he had never experienced before but now could not stop. He was afraid. Afraid of what he had seen. Afraid of what he had felt. Afraid that he could never go back to being what he was before. And in the corner, Jiwoo sobbed for her friend, knowing exactly what his fear had cost him and loving him more for having faced it anyway. The medical bay of the Eternal Vigil smelled of antiseptic and pain. Krelvan sat on a bed while robotic arms repaired the damage to his body. His leg had been nearly severed. Acid burns covered 2 of his arms. The wounds would heal. Vothar biology was remarkably efficient at repairing tissue damage, but something else had been damaged. Something that could not be fixed with medical technology. Across the room, Raltok lay unconscious. The Vothar warrior had lost one arm completely and suffered massive internal injuries. But he would live. The other two Vothar warriors had not been so fortunate. Their bodies had been left behind when Station Orpheus burned. The human soldiers sat in a corner together. Jiwoo's eyes were red. She had not stopped crying since they returned. Minji held her hand. Doyun sat very still, his face blank. Taemin stared at nothing, his jaw clenched tight. He died well, Krelvan said to them, trying to offer comfort in the Vothar way. A warrior's death, honorable. Taemin's eyes snapped to him. For a moment, Krelvan saw something dangerous in that gaze. Then the human's shoulders sagged. He didn't want to die at all. He wanted to go home, see his parents, maybe meet someone, have a normal life. Then why did he stay? Krelvan asked. Why not retreat with everyone else? Because we mattered more to him than his fear, Jiwoo said through tears. Because that's what humans do. We're terrified and we do it anyway. And it's not glorious or honorable or any of those words. It just hurts. Krelvan wanted to understand. His mind tried to process this, to fit it into categories that made sense, but the emotions were new and confusing. He looked at his shaking hands again. Something is wrong with me, he said quietly. Taemin looked up. What do you mean? I cannot stop thinking about the battle. About all the ways it could have gone differently. About what might have happened if I had moved slower or faster. About the Sendari child who might have died if we had not returned. These thoughts will not stop. Welcome to fear, Minji said without humor. That's what it does. It makes you think about everything, every possibility, every consequence. How do you make it stop? You don't, Taemin said. He stood and walked over to Krelvan. You learn to live with it. You learn to use it. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you from making stupid mistakes, but you never make it go away. That night, Krelvan tried to enter rest cycle. Vothar did not truly sleep the way other species did. They entered a state of reduced consciousness for several hours, allowing their bodies to recover. It was peaceful, automatic, but now his mind would not quiet. Every time his eyes closed, he saw Ravagers, heard their screams, watched Hyunwoo's last stand, again and again, saw different versions where everyone died, where the ship left without them, where the Queen broke through their defenses. His body temperature dropped. His hearts raced. He opened his eyes and found himself breathing rapidly, his hands gripping the bed frame hard enough to dent the metal. Krelvan? Jiwoo stood in the doorway. I heard noises. Are you okay? I do not know. My rest cycle is disrupted. She walked in and sat on the bed beside him. Her eyes were still red from crying, but her voice was steady. You're having what humans call anxiety. Maybe even a panic attack. Your body is reacting to stress and danger that isn't actually present right now. This is normal for humans? Unfortunately, yes. Especially after combat. Especially after losing someone. She looked down. I've had 3 panic attacks since we got back. Doyun's had 2. Taemin won't admit it, but I heard him in his quarters. Krelvan tried to imagine Taemin, the calm and efficient soldier, crying. He is strong. That's why he can cry. It takes strength to feel fear and keep going. It takes strength to lose someone you care about and not shut down completely. They sat in silence for a while. Then, Jiwoo said, Can I tell you about Hyunwoo? Would that bother you? No. Tell me. He was terrified of insects, absolutely hated them. Back on Earth, before the war, he would make other people kill spiders in his apartment. And here he was, fighting giant insect aliens. He threw up before every single mission against Ravagers. Then why did he continue to fight? Because people needed him. Because his fear didn't matter as much as doing the right thing. The night before this mission, He told me he had nightmares every single night. Nightmares about being eaten alive. But he still went. Krelvan felt something cold in his chest again. That same feeling from before. I am sorry he died. Me too. Jiwoo wiped her eyes. But I'm also proud of him. He was so scared, and he did it anyway. That's the most human thing possible. Over the next weeks, Krelvan researched what was happening to him. He accessed human medical databases, read psychological studies, watched recordings of human soldiers dealing with combat trauma. What he learned disturbed him deeply. His biology was changing. The humans' presence, their biochemical signals, the stress of combat alongside them, had triggered something in his genetic code. The Vothar had not always been fearless. Millions of years ago, their ancestors had felt fear. Evolution had slowly eliminated it, because on their world, fear was a disadvantage. But the genes remained, dormant and unused. And now they were activating. He reported this to the Vothar medical staff. They ran tests, scans, analyzed his brain chemistry. The results were conclusive. His fear response was now permanently active. He would never be the same as other Vothar again. This is a contamination, one doctor said clinically. Human proximity has damaged your neural pathways. We can attempt to suppress the new development with medication. Will it return me to normal? Unlikely. The changes are too extensive, but it may reduce the severity of symptoms. Krelvan considered this. A medication that would dull the fear, make him more like he used to be. It would be easier. No more nightmares. No more constant worry. No more feeling like his body was betraying him. But he thought about Hyunwoo, throwing up before missions and fighting anyway. About Jiwoo, shaking with fear, but running back into danger to save him. About Taemin, feeling every death in his squad, but continuing to lead. No, Krelvan said. I do not want the medication. The doctor's face showed confusion. You wish to remain damaged? I do not think it is damage. I think it is evolution. He requested a transfer. Not back to a Vothar unit, but to permanent assignment with Taemin's squad. The request went up through the chain of command. There were meetings, discussions, debates about whether a Vothar could effectively integrate with a human unit. Taemin himself came to talk to him. Are you sure about this? You'd be the only Vothar in a human squad. It won't be easy, I know. But I cannot return to my people. They see me as broken. And I do not think I am broken. I think I have learned something they have not. What's that? That fear is not weakness. It is wisdom. And that courage is not the absence of fear. It is action, despite fear. Taemin smiled. The first genuine smile Krelvan had seen from him since Hyunwoo's death. Yeah, that's exactly right. Welcome to the team. 3 months passed. Krelvan trained with the human squad, learning their methods completely. He learned to check corners twice, to value cover over speed, to retreat when necessary, and attack when advantageous. He learned to feel fear and work through it. The nightmares continued. Some nights he woke up shaking, his mind full of horrible images. But Jiwoo, or Doyun, or Taemin would hear and come sit with him. They did not offer false comfort or tell him to be strong. They just sat there, sharing the burden of fear, proving he was not alone in feeling it. A new soldier joined their squad. Her name was Unji, a young woman on her first assignment. She was terrified constantly, jumping at every sound, her hands always trembling. Some of the other soldiers grew impatient with her, but Krelvan took her aside one day. I want to tell you something, he said. 3 months ago, I did not know what fear was. I thought it was weakness. Then I watched the bravest warriors I have ever known fight while terrified. I watched a human sacrifice himself to save others, even though every part of him wanted to run. Fear does not make you weak. Fear makes you careful. And careful soldiers live to fight Another day. Yunji looked at him with wide eyes. But I'm afraid all the time. How do I make it stop? You do not make it stop. You learn to act despite it. That is what courage is. She nodded slowly. Did someone tell you that? Yes. A human named Tae Min. And another human named Hyun Woo, who showed me through his actions what it meant. The call came on a quiet afternoon. A new mission. A colony world called Seraph 9 had been attacked by ravagers. Heavy fortifications, multiple queen nests, thousands of civilians trapped, high risk, high casualties expected. The squad gathered for briefing. Krelvan felt his heart's rate increase. His body temperature dropped. His hands wanted to shake. All the biological signs of fear that he had learned to recognize. But he also felt something else. Determination. Purpose. The knowledge that people needed help, and he had the ability to provide it. You good? Tae Min asked him quietly. Krelvan looked at his commander, his friend. I am terrified. Tae Min smiled. Good. That means you're thinking clearly. Let's go save some lives. Tae Min. 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 As they boarded the transport ship, Krelvan thought about how far he had come. He thought about Hyun Woo, whose fear had not stopped him from being a hero. He thought about all the humans who felt terror every day and fought anyway. And he understood finally what made humanity special. Not their technology, or their tactics, or their physical abilities. It was their capacity to feel fear deeply, completely, and still choose to act with courage and compassion. He was no longer Vothar as his people defined it. But he was something new. Something that combined the strengths of both species. He could feel fear and use it as wisdom. He could be afraid and still be brave. The ship's engines roared to life. Through the viewport, he could see Seraph 9 growing larger. Somewhere down there, people were trapped and terrified. And somewhere in this ship, a mixed squad of humans and one changed, Vothar were afraid but ready to help anyway. Krelvan checked his weapons and prepared his mind. The fear was there, cold and constant. But so was his resolve. He had learned from the best teachers in the galaxy. He had learned from humanity. Seraph 9 burned. From orbit, Krelvan could see the fires spreading across the colony's main settlement. The Ravagers had been thorough in their destruction. Entire city blocks were covered in the organic material that marked their nests. Intel reports 4 separate queen nests. Tae Min briefed the combined strike force. 24 Vothar warriors and 15 human soldiers filled the transport bay. Approximately 8,000 civilians trapped in emergency shelters throughout the city. Ravager forces, number in the tens of thousands. One Vothar warrior, Velnash, sneered. And we have fewer than 40 soldiers. The odds are impossible. Yes, Tae Min agreed calmly. That's why we're not fighting them all. We're going to be smart about this. Smart, another Vothar warrior muttered. More human caution. More fear-thinking. More human caution. Krelvan turned to face the speaker. I have fought beside humans for 3 months. I have learned their methods, and I am alive because of it. More importantly, the civilians we rescued are alive because of it. Your fearlessness is admirable, but it is also wasteful. Velnash stepped forward aggressively. You have been contaminated. Everyone knows this. You are no longer truly Vothar. You shake like prey. You hesitate, like a coward. Before Krelvan could respond, Unji spoke up. Her voice was quiet but steady. He saved my life last week. I got pinned down by enemy fire. I was too scared to move. Krelvan came back for me under heavy fire. He was terrified. I could see it. But he came anyway. That's not cowardice. That's bravery. Tae Min cut off any further argument. Enough. Krelvan has earned his place in this unit. If anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me after we save 8,000 lives. Clear? The transport shook as it entered atmosphere. The city grew larger in the viewports. Krelvan felt fear coil in his stomach. Cold and sharp. His hands wanted to shake. He forced them still, using the breathing techniques Jiwoo had taught him. "You okay?" she asked beside him. "No, I am afraid. But I am ready." She nodded with understanding. "Same here. I had nightmares about this all last night. But you still came." "Of course, that's the job." They landed in a secured zone on the colony's outskirts. The city's remaining defense forces met them, exhausted and desperate. A human colonel named Hanol briefed them on the tactical situation. The civilians are scattered in 12 different emergency shelters. Most shelters are surrounded by Ravager forces. We've lost contact with 4 shelters entirely. Recommend we focus on the 8 we can still reach. "No," Krelvan said before he fully thought about it. Everyone turned to stare at him. "We do not abandon the 4 we lost contact with. That is not what humans taught me." Taemin studied the tactical map. "Krelvan's right. We don't write people off. Even if there's a small chance, we try." Velnash laughed bitterly. "So, we sacrifice the certain 8 to chase the possible 4? This is the human wisdom you speak of?" "No," Taemin said. "We split forces. Risky, but it gives everyone a chance. Velnash, you take half the Voth-R and secure shelters 1 through 6. Fast, aggressive, overwhelming force. Use your fearlessness as a weapon. Hit them so hard and so fast they can't respond." The Voth-R warrior looked surprised at being given a command role. He nodded sharply. "The rest of us will handle the 4 dark shelters and the remaining difficult rescues. We'll move slow, careful, and try to avoid direct engagement when possible." Taemin looked at Krelvan. "You're with me. Your mix of Voth-R combat ability and human tactical thinking is exactly what we need." The strike teams deployed. Velnash's force charged into the city with typical Voth-R aggression. Krelvan watched them go, recognizing the warrior he used to be. In their fearless advance, Taemin's team moved differently. They advanced through the city block by block, using buildings for cover, avoiding Ravager patrols when possible. When they had to fight, they fought efficiently and disengaged quickly. "First dark shelter is 2 blocks ahead," Doyun reported from his scout position. "Heavy Ravager presence. I'm reading movement inside the shelter, though. People are still alive. How many Ravagers?" Taemin asked. 50. Maybe more. And the shelter entrance has been partially collapsed. They're trying to dig their way in." Krelvan felt fear spike in his chest. 50 Ravagers against their small team. The old Krelvan would have charged without thinking. The new Krelvan thought of all the ways this could go wrong. Both versions of himself came to the same conclusion, though. "We have to try," he said. "Those people have minutes at most." Minji studied the building structure on her scanner. "I can bring down the adjacent building. Create a distraction. Draw most of the Ravagers away from the shelter entrance." "Do it," Taemin ordered. "Everyone else, be ready to move fast once that building falls. We get to the civilians. Get them out. And disappear before the Ravagers regroup." They moved into position. Krelvan's fear had become a constant companion now, whispering warnings and calculating dangers. But he had learned to work through it, to let it inform his decisions without controlling them. Minji's charges detonated. The building collapsed with a roar of breaking concrete and twisting metal. Ravagers swarmed toward the noise, leaving the shelter entrance relatively unguarded. The team moved. 3 Ravagers remained at the entrance. Krelvan killed 2 with precise shots. Unji, hands shaking but aim steady, took down the 3rd. They reached the shelter and found the door jammed. "Stand back," Krelvan said. He used 2 of his arms to grab the door while bracing with his legs. The metal groaned and shrieked. His muscles burned. but the door moved, then tore free. Inside, 40 terrified civilians huddled in darkness. Most were injured. All were hungry and dehydrated. A young Terran woman stared at Krelvan with wide eyes. "You came," she whispered. "We thought no one would come." "We came," Krelvan said. Something in his chest felt warm despite the fear. "Can you walk?" "Some of us. Others are hurt badly. Then we carry them." He turned to the team. "Jiwoo, start triage. Unji, help her. Doyun, watch our exit route. Taemin and I will handle security." They worked quickly but carefully. The Ravagers would return soon once they realized the building collapse was a diversion. Every second counted. But rushing would only cause mistakes. This was the balance humans had taught him. Urgency and caution, fear and courage, all working together. The evacuation took 8 minutes. 8 minutes of pure terror, expecting Ravager shrieks at any moment. But the team moved efficiently, each person supporting the others. When they finally got clear with all 40 civilians, Krelvan's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his weapon. 3 more shelters, Taemin said quietly. "Can you keep going?" Krelvan wanted to say no, wanted to find somewhere safe and just stop shaking. But he thought about Hyunwoo, standing at that hangar door despite his terror. He thought about every human he had watched face their fear and push through it. "Yes, I can keep going." The second shelter was empty. The Ravagers had broken through days ago. They found bodies, but no survivors. Jiwoo cried silently as they moved on. Unji looked sick. Even Doyun's usual calm expression cracked. The third shelter was worse. They arrived just as the Ravagers broke through. The screaming lasted for seconds before stopping abruptly. Taemin ordered them to pull back, but not before Krelvan saw what was inside. That night would give him new nightmares. New images to add to the collection of horrible things his fear made him remember in perfect detail. The fourth dark shelter presented a different problem. It was located in the center of a Ravager nest, surrounded by hundreds of hostiles. There was no way to reach it without a major assault. "We need to bypass this one," Doyun said. "The odds are impossible." And Krelvan studied the tactical map. His fear was screaming at him to agree. Every calculation said this was suicide. But he thought about the Sendari civilian on Station Orpheus, the one whose daughter had been trapped. He thought about hope and what it meant to people facing death. "The other teams," he said. "How are they doing?" Taemin checked communications. Velnash's force has secured 6 shelters. 212 civilians rescued. But they've taken heavy casualties. 5 Vothar warriors dead. "Because they charge without thinking," Krelvan said. "They fight like I used to fight. Fearless and stupid." He looked at the map again. What if we combined both approaches? Used Vothar aggression with human tactics? "Explain," Taemin said. "We contact Velnash. Have his force launch a direct assault from one side, pure Vothar style, loud and aggressive. While the Ravagers respond to that threat, we move in from the other side. Fast but careful. Extract the civilians while the Ravagers are distracted." Minji frowned. "That would require incredible timing. And trust that Velnash can pull back when needed." "Can you teach them to retreat?" Yunji asked. "I thought Vothar never retreat." "They do not," Krelvan said. "But I did. And I survived to save more people because of it. Perhaps they can learn, as I did." Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Then, he nodded. "Let's try it. Krelvan, you coordinate with Velnash. He might listen to a fellow Vothar more than a human." The communication channel crackled. Velnash's voice came through, heavy with exhaustion. "What do you need?" Krelvan explained the plan. He expected resistance, mockery, refusal. Instead, there was only silence. Then Velnash said, "I have watched my warriors die today. Brave deaths, honorable deaths. But deaths nonetheless. and we could have saved more people if we had been more careful. I begin to understand what you learned. Will you trust me? Krelvan asked. Will you attack, and then retreat on my signal? Yes. But if we do this, you must promise me something. What? Teach me how you do it. How you feel, fear, and fight anyway. How you become this new thing you have become. Krelvan felt his hearts clench. I promise. But first, we save these people. The assault began. Velnash's force hit the nest like a hammer. All fury and firepower. The Ravagers responded exactly as predicted, swarming toward the threat. In the chaos, Krelvan's team slipped through gaps in the defense. They reached the shelter. The door was sealed from inside. Krelvan pounded on it. We are coalition forces. Open the door. A moment of silence. Then a voice, weak with fear. How do we know you're real? The Ravagers have tried to trick us before. You do not know, Krelvan said honestly. You have to trust us. But we are here, and we are afraid. Just like you. And we came anyway, because you matter. The door opened. 120 people were inside, pressed together in a space meant for 40. They looked like ghosts, pale and hollow-eyed, but alive. Velnash, we have them, Krelvan broadcast. Pull back now. Pulling back, Velnash confirmed. Krelvan could hear the strain in his voice. Retreating went against everything the Vothar warrior believed in. But he did it anyway. The extraction took 15 minutes of careful movement. Ravagers pursued. But the combined teams worked together, covering each other, moving civilians through safe zones, using fear as wisdom, rather than letting it control them. When they finally reached the safe zone, every soldier was wounded or exhausted, or both, but they had rescued over 500 people total. 500 lives that would have been lost. Velnash approached Krelvan as medics treated the wounded. I felt something today, the Vothar warrior said quietly. When you told me to retreat, every part of me wanted to refuse. But I also saw how many people we had saved using your methods. And I thought, what if I stay and die? Then I cannot save anyone else tomorrow. For the first time, I wondered if my death would mean something, or just be waste. That is the beginning of fear, Krelvan said, and the beginning of wisdom. Teach me more. Over the following days, the battle for Seraph 9 continued. But the tactics changed. Vothar warriors learned to retreat when necessary. Humans learned when to be aggressive from Vothar examples. Both species began to truly understand each other. Krelvan fought in the thick of every battle. He was terrified constantly. His hands shook before every engagement. He had nightmares every time he tried to rest. But he also saved countless lives by thinking through his fear, using it as a tool rather than treating it as weakness. 3 weeks later, Seraph 9 was liberated. 7,200 civilians rescued. Heavy casualties on both sides, but far fewer than anyone had predicted. The colony's leadership held a memorial service for the fallen. Krelvan stood with the human squad at a memorial wall, where Hyun-Woo's name had been added. Beside it were the names of the Vothar warriors, who had died at Station Orpheus, and many others from this battle. You did good work here, Colonel Hunnell said to Krelvan. Both human and Vothar soldiers report that you helped them understand each other better. That saved lives. I am only teaching what I was taught, Krelvan said. By humans, who showed me that bravery is not the absence of fear. It is action. Despite fear. That evening, young Vothar warriors approached him. They had heard stories. They wanted to understand this new way of fighting that combined fearlessness with tactical wisdom. Krelvan looked at their eager faces and remembered himself 3 months ago, confident and ignorant of the lessons he would learn. I will teach you, he said. But you must understand something first. What I will teach you will change you. You will feel things you have never felt before. Fear, doubt, sorrow for fallen comrades. You will have nightmares. You will question yourself. It will be painful and difficult. But we will be better soldiers? One young warrior asked. No, you will be better people. And that will make you better soldiers. He began his lessons, trying to explain concepts his people had no words for. How fear could inform tactics. How caring about others made you fight harder to protect them. How recognizing your own mortality made you value every life more. Some of the warriors struggled with the concepts. Some rejected them entirely. But some began to understand. Krelvan could see it in their eyes. That first moment when fear bloomed in a mind that had never known it before. It was terrifying for them. But it was also the first step toward true wisdom. Weeks became months. Krelvan remained with Taemin's unit. They fought together, bled together, mourned together. He learned more about humanity with each mission, their capacity for love and hope even in darkness, their stubborn refusal to give up even when victory seemed impossible, their ability to feel crushing fear and still move forward. And slowly, very slowly, he began to teach his own people these same lessons. The Voth military started integrating human tactical doctrine. Casualties dropped. Mission success rates improved. Warriors lived longer. But more importantly, they began to live differently. To value their own lives and the lives of others. To fight not because they knew no fear, but because they knew exactly what they were risking and chose to do it anyway. One night, Krelvan sat with Taemin on the observation deck of their ship, watching stars drift past. Do you regret it? Taemin asked. Becoming what you are now? Living with fear every day? Krelvan thought about all he had gained and all he had lost. The innocence of fearlessness. The simplicity of never doubting. But also, the depth of understanding he now possessed. The connections he had formed with others who faced fear together. The meaning he found in choosing courage despite terror. No, he said finally. Before, I was a perfect warrior. Efficient and fearless. But I was also empty. I fought because I knew nothing else. Now I fight because I understand what I am fighting for. That is worth any amount of fear. You've changed a lot of minds among your people. Some. But many still see me as contaminated. Broken. Wrong. And what do you see when you look at yourself? Krelvan looked at his 4 hands. They were steady now. Calm in this moment of peace. But he knew they would shake again when battle came. And that was right. That was as it should be. I see someone who learned what it means to be brave. Not from being fearless, but from battling next to humanity. You taught me that fear is not weakness. It is the price we pay for caring about something beyond ourselves, and that price is worth paying. Taemin smiled. Welcome to humanity, Krelvan. Even if you're not technically human, you've got the most important part figured out. You've got heart. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. 2 soldiers from different species, different biologies, different cultures, but united by understanding. United by the knowledge that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to act despite it. And somewhere in the galaxy, other Vothar warriors were learning the same lesson. Slowly, painfully, but inevitably. Because Krelvan had shown them a truth they had never known. Fear could make you weak, but facing your fear could make you strong. And fighting alongside those who understood this truth could make you invincible. Not because you felt no fear, but because you felt it and fought anyway. That was the lesson humanity had taught him. That was the gift he would spend his life sharing with others. And that was why, when the next call to battle came, he would go. Terrified and determined. Shaking and steady. Afraid and brave, just like the humans who had changed his life forever.